Hello students, we once again meet in our usual biology lessons. I'm glad to meet you again this particular moment. My name is Mr. Situma and I'm presenting the role of mineral salts in plants. The role of mineral salts in plants. Now, remember that we have been looking at the process of photosynthesis. And as we look at photosynthesis, we need to know which particular other components are important in this particular process. We looked at the requirements of photosynthesis, the presence of carbon dioxide gas, the presence of sunlight energy, the chlorophyll molecules. Now, when all these components are there, without the mineral salts, then it will be very difficult for the plant to be able to grow, because the mineral salts are actually required in the leaves to be able to provide the requirements and add up to the other factors which regulate the process of photosynthesis to enable the plant to be able to manufacture its food and also have a healthy growth. So at the end of it all, we should be in a position to explain the role of the different mineral salts in plants. We need to explain the role that is played by the different mineral components in plants, what they do and how their deficiency can be able to affect the growth of the plant. Now, to start with, proper growth of plants requires the supply of water and the mineral salts. The proper growth of the plants requires the supply of water and the mineral salts. Now, when you look at that, we have what we call proper growth. It means we can have growth which is improper. And the improper growth will result if we don't have the supply of water and the mineral salts. That will lead to what we call improper growth. Now, these two should also be given in the right proportions. That means when you talk about the water and the mineral salts, the two should be supplied in their required components. When we say that the two have to be given in the correct proportions, what we mean is that we only need a specified amount of water for the plants, so that this water is not too little for the plants, nor is it too much for the plants. So it has to be within the limits. It must be supplied within the limits that will be able to benefit the plant. You must have come across flooding when there is too much rainfall and the floods are available. In that form, the water available may not benefit the plant to a greater extent. The reason is because there is too much water than what the plant requires. There are some specific plants that may require a lot of water. So if you grow such plants in areas where there is insufficient supply of water, you will definitely have a problem in getting the required yields. For example, if you have the rice and you grow this rice in a dry area, then definitely, unless you irrigate that particular land, the available water in the soil may not benefit that rice. So that's why we say that the mineral salts and the water have to be given in their right proportions. Now, the plants obtain the mineral salts in dissolved form from the ground during growth. These plants are able to obtain the mineral salts. But what we are saying is that these mineral salts are not absorbed as mineral salts directly from the soil. But the mineral salts must first dissolve inside the water before they are absorbed into the plant. That should inform us exactly the role played by the water in this particular case. That's why you can't talk about the mineral salts without the water, because the mineral salts have to be absorbed in dissolved form when the plant are utilizing them from the ground. Now, continuous use of the land each year may lead to depletion of some of the important mineral components from the soil. When you continuously till your land, when you continue plowing your land, when you continue digging your land year in, year out, without any measures, and you keep on planting on the same piece of land, then at some point you will discover that the yields of that particular piece of land will reduce. The amount of products that you're going to get, when I talk about yields, I'm talking about the products. The products given out by that piece of land will actually go down. Why? It is because these plants grown on the same piece of land will keep on utilizing the mineral components from the soil. And if this is removed, then automatically the depletion of these particular minerals will also occur. Now, what will happen if the mineral components are depleted? When these are depleted from the soil, we shall have improper growth. We'll have poor yields of the plants. Poor products will be produced by that particular piece of land. The reason is because we have insufficient mineral components that are available to the plants. They are not enough for the plant to be able to utilize them. That is what happens when there is continuous use of a piece of land. In some cases, the soil may not have enough of a given type of mineral salt for proper growth. In some of the cases, the soil may contain too little, very little of a given type of mineral salt that is required for proper growth. Now, if it happens in that particular case, then it means that you have to think of a way of ensuring that you enrich the soil, that you add more of these mineral salts to the soil, so that this soil can therefore be able to sustain the growth of the plants as required. So in such cases, when we have a limited amount of a particular type of mineral salt, or if we continuously use a specified piece of land, then we shall be able to run short of the mineral components, and that will lead to improper growth. Then, what will happen if this happens? If the plant does not get enough of the mineral components, the fertilizers must now come in. That means that we have now to add the fertilizer to be able to supply the depleted or the missing mineral salts. We'll have an option but to increase the mineral component which is missing from the soil, and that is done by adding the required amount of the fertilizers that contains the missing mineral salts or the mineral salts which could be running short of supply from the soil. Now, what it means here is that the fertilizer will be made in such a way that it has the required mineral components that the plants require. For example, if the plant, a particular plant or a particular area, the plants require fertilizer or mineral component A, mineral component B, and mineral component C, and if in the same area, that particular plant will require a lot of mineral component B compared to A and C, then the fertilizer will be manufactured in such a way that it has a higher percentage of B as compared to the mineral component of A and C. Remember that the depletion of these particular minerals is not uniform. In some of the cases, it occurs much slower. In other cases, it can take place at a much faster rate. So because of that, then you will discover that the manufacture of these particular fertilizers will depend on the requirement of the different plants in different regions. Now, the fertilizers, therefore, will contain specific proportions according to the requirements, as earlier said. That means you will get, for example, the mineral components given in percentage form. You might be given these percentages. They will normally write on the surface or on the bags. For example, they can put this particular percentage of this particular component, this particular percentage of maybe component B, component C, and so on and so forth. So that will guide you when you're doing the farming or when you're doing the crops, that when the soil sample is missing a particular mineral component, then when you go to the shops, you have to look for the one that has that particular mineral component in the highest percentage. That is what will be able to benefit the plants in such an area. Now, each specific mineral component has a specific role to play in the growth of plants. Every single mineral component has a particular role to play in the growth of plants. There is no time you're going to find that a particular mineral component is going to play all the roles. Each of them have their own specific roles. So in our next lesson, we're going to look at the different roles of the different mineral components in the growth of plants. Until now, let me meet you in the next lesson.